Welcome to A Styled Life, the podcast for purpose-led female founders and senior leaders ready to use style as a powerful tool for confidence, impact, and influence. I'm your host, Alex Standley, multi-award-winning personal stylist, speaker, and sustainable fashion consultant with 2 decades of experience in the fast-paced world of fashion. Join me as we redefine success from the inside out. This podcast isn't just about clothes. It's about personal power, purposeful style, and creating a life that aligns with your values. So whether you're running a business, leading a movement, or stepping into your next chapter, you're in the right place. Each week, we'll dive into the world of personal style, sustainability, female empowerment, and living with intention through real stories, expert insights, and plenty of inspiration. I wanted to talk to you about something a bit deeper this week and something that I have personal experience of, but also I see all the time with my clients, and that is closet grief. When I started doing this work, I obviously expected wardrobe overwhelm, decision fatigue, maybe some frustration thrown into the mix as well. But I didn't expect women to feel this depth of grief, the kind of grief that you feel when you're losing somebody, except the somebody is basically a version of yourself. And that's what I want to talk about today, because if you've ever stood in front of your wardrobe and felt something closer to mourning than indecision, then this episode is for you. So there's a phrase that some stylists use called closet grief. And when I first came across it, I have to admit, I thought it sounded a bit dramatic. But then I started working with women who were going through identity changes and career changes, body shape changes, life changes. And I realized it's probably the most accurate description of what every woman goes through when she opens her wardrobe and finds she has absolutely nothing to wear, or worse, feels absolute dread. And you know that time, like you're standing in front of your wardrobe before a meeting or an event or a photo shoot, and you pull something out and it doesn't fit. It might be that it doesn't fit, physically on your body, but it also doesn't fit who you are anymore. And you feel like you can't get rid of it because, for example, that blazer that got you through your first board presentation, or those shoes were what you wore the day that you launched your business, or that dress is from a chapter of your life that meant everything to you. And clearing out your wardrobe sounds like it should be, the simplest thing in the world. Marie Kondo made a whole career out of it. But nobody talks about the reason it's so hard, which is that you're not getting rid of just the clothes. You're saying goodbye to a version of yourself. And that version kept you safe. That version got you to where you are. And that version often built something amazing and something that you're really proud of. And how do you kind of thank that version of you, but also let her go at the same time? And I see this with almost every woman that I work with. They come to me saying, I have nothing to wear. I have a wardrobe full of clothes, but I have nothing to wear. And what they actually mean is, I have a wardrobe full of someone I'm not anymore. And I don't know how to dress for the woman that I've become. So I wanted to talk you through some of the patterns that I keep seeing in the work that I do with the women that I'm working with, because I think there are 3 versions of closet grief that come up again and again in my work. And I think that you'll recognize yourself in at least one of these. So first up is the woman who left corporate, but her wardrobe didn't. She handed in her notice years ago. She was really excited to start her own business, and she changed her entire life in the process. But open her wardrobe and it's still full of dark suits, structured blazers, perhaps some court shoes and heels thrown into the mix as well. She's dressing for the career that she walked away from. Not because she misses that career, but because her wardrobe is still performing to that old role. And there's something that can be really terrifying about clearing out all of that corporate armor, because it was the thing that made people take her seriously, perhaps what she associates with, a big time in her life. And she perhaps doesn't know who she is without it. So that's why the navy and the black suits stay, or the dresses stay where they are. I've worked with so many women who left corporate 3, 4, 5 years ago and still have the suits hanging there. They're not being worn and they haven't been donated. They're just sat there kind of in the waiting room, as if getting rid of them would mean admitting that that version of her is gone for good. Then there's the woman whose body changed and took her identity with it. So it might be through menopause, pregnancy, illness, weight change. Something changed and the clothes that used to make her feel like herself don't sit right anymore. And this one is particularly brutal because the grief is double: grief for the body that you once had and grief for the woman who dressed it with confidence. And you're standing in front of the mirror and don't recognize either. And a lot of the women in this situation will say to me, I just need to lose a stone and then I'll sort my wardrobe out, or I just need to reach a size, fill in the gap, and then I'll invest in working with you to sort my wardrobe out. They're waiting for a body that isn't coming back before they'll invest in the woman who's here right now. And every morning in the meantime is kind of self-rejection because she's basically outgrown her own wardrobe and her own story. And the next woman is somebody, again, who's outgrown her own story. So she's built her career around one thing, one expertise, one way of being known, and she's moved on. Her work's expanded, her ambition has changed. She wants bigger stages, different conversations. She's in a totally new chapter, but her wardrobe is still anchored to the old version of her. You know, it might be somebody who was in corporate working in marketing and now she's a menopause specialist, or an accountant who's now become a business coach. It might be as simple as your business has just expanded and you want more from it. So you might have been based locally and now you want national press and national exposure. Your work has changed, but your clothes are still telling the old story. So there is one pattern that happens across all three of these, and that is defaulting to black or to safe neutral colours. I see it constantly. Women who wear black every day, not because they love it, but because it's the safest way to avoid making a decision about who they are now. Is elegant and beautiful. If you're reaching for it in an empowered way, then that is incredible. But if you're reaching for it because choosing anything else feels too difficult or feels too exposing, then it's not a style choice, it's a hiding place. So could you recognize yourself in any of those three? Do let me know, drop me a message on Instagram. So why this is grief and not a style necessarily is when we talk about style, we tend to talk about it like it's a puzzle, like find your colors, learn your body shape, build a capsule wardrobe. But none of that touches what's happening underneath, because a woman's wardrobe is a physical record of every version of herself that she's ever been. The interview suit, the new mum who just wants to feel human outfit, the I'm finally earning enough to buy something nice piece, the going out dress from before the business consumed everything. Each one of those pieces is tied to something sentimental to a previous chapter. And when you try and clear them out, you're not just decluttering, you're closing those chapters. And some of those chapters were brutal, some of those chapters were beautiful, some you survived by the skin of your teeth, and the clothes are the evidence that you were there. I've been in this situation myself on multiple occasions, actually. When I became a mum, my body shape completely changed, and I had outgrown a lot of my wardrobe physically because my size had changed, but my shape had also changed. And I had the most beautiful pieces that I'd picked up from all around the world when I used to do inspirational shopping in cities like Paris and Hong Kong, New York. And they were pieces that I, at the time, felt that I couldn't replace. But I needed to let them go with love, because every time I opened my wardrobe and I saw them and I could no longer fit into them, it brought up such sadness and frustration and that feeling of shame, almost like I should be smaller, I should be XYZ. And once I got rid of them, it was so therapeutic. And actually, a couple of pieces I passed to one of my neighbours and I could see her out enjoying them, giving them a second story, a second life. And there was something really powerful in that it didn't have to mean, it meant the end of those pieces in my particular wardrobe, but actually they went on to make somebody else happy. And in letting that go, I was able to then welcome in, new pieces that did fit me, that made me feel amazing. And that is so important. And, I've been through this on multiple occasions in my life. And also, in the last 18 months or so, I've been through another reinvention with my business, with up-leveling, with rebranding. And again, I've had, those same thoughts of I've evolved, I've changed. Has my wardrobe kept pace with that? And in some ways it had, and I had, a lot of the foundations there. But I had to subtly start to introduce some new pieces that fit this new version of me. And we will always go through these evolutions. We will always have these moments of reinvention. But so many of us will stay stuck because we don't have the vision for what that will look like. So telling you to just clear out what doesn't serve you anymore without actually acknowledging what is happening underneath all of that is well-meaning, but it's why most wardrobe declutters don't stick, because you can throw out every item in your wardrobe and still be dressing for a past version of yourself if you haven't actually done the identity work that needs to be done underneath it. I do an exercise with clients and sometimes at my events as well. It's called my past, present, future method. And we think about what we're letting go of and what we're reclaiming as well, which are both equally really important. And it's so interesting because that letting go idea is always really fierce, like what people say that they're letting go of. It's fear, it's judgment, it's playing small, playing safe, overthinking. One woman once said being relatable, which has really stayed with me. And that performance of like being palatable to other people and shrinking so that other people feel comfortable around your success. And none of that is self-expression, none of that is style. It's all based on fear and on survival. And the reclaiming idea from, what are you going to bring forward from, whether that's from the past or from the present, and take into the future with you. That's the one that often cracks open like those light bulb moments and reconnects women to their joy and to things that they've left behind. And it's things like creativity, vibrancy, color, experimentation, joy. Women who have spent years in neutral, safe, forgettable clothing, sharing words like sparkle, fearless, celebratory. It's just incredible to see. And the thing about that reclaiming is it's not always aspirational in the way that you might think. It's not always like women dreaming up a future version of themselves. Sometimes it's remembering, it's like peeling back those layers to who you always were underneath all of the labels and all of the shoulds and all of the things that you've ever been told that you should be or do or say. And I've had clients say to me, like, I used to make my own clothes as a teenager, or I remember being 18 and getting dressed without thinking about it. And it was just excitement and pure pleasure and play. And they remember a version of themselves who dressed without fear before the career and the expectations and the pressure to look professional buried her underneath all of those things. And the grief is for that woman too, the one that was free, the one who dressed for herself and for nobody else. And that is why I say closet grief kind of runs in two directions. So you're grieving the version that you've outgrown, but you're also grieving the version that you might have lost along the way, and the one that often knew exactly who she was and dressed like it as well. So I wanted to sort of close things off by talking about the opposite of closet grief, which is called Wearapy. And I talked about Wearapy in the past, but it's probably several years ago. So you might not have heard me use this phrase before, but I think it really speaks to the opposite version of closet grief. So it's the idea that getting dressed is an act of self-care. So not saving your favorites for a special occasion, wearing the thing that makes you feel amazing. It's very similar concept to dopamine dressing, like wearing pieces that you associate with happiness, with energy, with feeling like yourself. And I first came across this idea in the Sunday Times style magazine like years and years ago. But I'd been doing it for years without perhaps having that name for it. And it connects to everything that I've been talking about in this episode, because so many of the women that I work with own clothes that they love. Like they have the most beautiful pieces in their wardrobe, but they're just hanging there unworn. And she's saving it for something. She thinks they're too much for a Tuesday, or she's worried somebody will say, oh, you look nice. What's the occasion? As if looking good requires an excuse or a reason. And that fear of being too much, of standing out, of wearing your best pieces on an ordinary day is the same fear that keeps women stuck in that grief. So you dim yourself down, you reach for the safe option. And every morning you pass over the thing that would make you feel like yourself because it feels too bold, because it feels too visible, because it feels too exposed. And Wearapy is the antidote to that. It's choosing to wear the thing anyway, using your wardrobe as a tool, not a punishment, like setting the tone for your day with what you put on instead of letting your day dictate what you reach for, which is what so many women default to doing. And I have watched women go from, I have no idea what my style is, to choosing an outfit in 5 minutes flat with zero anxiety because they stopped trying to dress for who they were and started to dress for who they actually are. And that is Wearapy in action. It's clothes as a daily tool for your confidence, for your mood, for your presence, and not something that you just endure and you have this huge like mental load hanging in the back of your mind every day. And when you kind of reconnect with who you are, which is what I do with my clients through that identity process, then it opens up space to let go of the things that no longer serve you, and your wardrobe basically stops being a source of dread and becomes a source of energy, a source of confidence, and a source of pure joy. And that's why I start with identity and not with your wardrobe. And my program, Identity to Impact, uses things like human design, astrology, character strengths to build a picture of who you actually are at your core, not who you were, not who you think you should be, who you actually are. And then we translate that into your style, into how you show up, into color, into your wardrobe, all of it, so that every day your style stops being a negotiation and it starts becoming a recognition, so that your wardrobe becomes Wearapy and not a constant source of decision fatigue. Because you can't dress for who you're becoming if you're still grieving who you were. If that's landing for you, I would love to chat to you on a free style strategy call, which you can book in the show notes, and we can talk through the details of Identity to Impact. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, please send it to her. If you're standing at your wardrobe tomorrow morning feeling that dread, know that the grief is the beginning and not the end. I'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in to A Styled Life. If today's episode resonated, the best way to support the show is to share it with another trailblazer or leave a quick review. And if you're ready to align your style with your next level of impact, head to the show notes to book your free style strategy call. Because when your style aligns with your purpose, the world takes notice.